This episode is brought to you by Sterling Soap Company. How often do you think about your soap? Well, if you answered, not much, maybe you should. You see, a lot of what passes for soap in stores is technically not soap, according to the FDA's definition. It's full of lab-created chemicals and detergents because, well, it's cheaper to make. Now, what if you could buy natural soap made from natural ingredients like tallow, palm oil, coconut oil, and scented with essential oils, and for just a little more than you'd pay for grocery store soap? Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a wide variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, and cologne, there's a product and a scent for just about everybody. Check them out for yourself at sterlingsoap.com. That's STIRLING soap.com.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Darren Hayes, host of the Pigskin Dispatch and Jersey Dispatch podcast. I hope you've enjoyed another great episode here on Sports History Network. Now, speaking of sports history, this episode was brought to you by Firefly Books, and they have two great ones for you this summer. For basketball fans, they have the NBA 75, the definitive history by author Dave Zarum, who's appeared on our Jersey Dispatch podcast recently. He tells about the experience, the thrilling journey of the NBA, from its humble beginnings to its modern glory. Uncover the untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. This isn't just a book. It's courtside seats to over 75 years of NBA history. And for the golf enthusiasts, swing into The Golf Round I'll Never Forget by Matt Adams. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. From Garcia's triumph at the 2017 Masters to Nicklaus' miraculous 1986 comeback, it's the closest you'll get to walking the fairways with golf's greatest. Get your summer read on. Grab a copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available online or at your favorite bookstore.
This is Basketball History 101 with Rick Loayza.
Welcome back to Award-winning Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network. I am your host, Rick Loayza, and this is the podcast where we bring to life some of the forgotten stories from basketball history. We are bringing old school basketball to a new school audience. And today we bring you the story of when the ABA tried to sign Kareem Abdul-Jabbar with a $1 million signing bonus. Now for this story, I have to take you all the way back to the summer of 1969. Things were groovy back then. Flower power was in full effect growing out of San Francisco. There were protests against the war in Vietnam all over the United States. Things were in a cultural and economic upheaval. The U.S. was going through a massive transformation. And in the midst of all this, a young basketball player from UCLA had just won his third national championship and his third National Player of the Year award, and he was now ready to move on to the professional ranks. That player was named Lew Alcindor. Today, he goes by the name Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but for the purposes of this story, I will call him Alcindor since that was the name that he went by at the time. So, landing Alcindor was going to be tougher than normal because the NBA was not the only league out there. The ABA had just finished its second season of existence, and landing Alcindor would have been huge for the ABA. The ABA was struggling for legitimacy. They were not yet taken very seriously as an alternative basketball league. For the most part, the ABA was full of players who could not make an NBA roster. For all intents and purposes, they were a second-class league. But if they could land Lew Alcindor, it was not only going to be the team that got taken seriously, but the entire league. With Alcindor in the league, they were going to be able to sell more tickets across the entire league and possibly sign a lucrative television contract, which would bring in a massive new revenue stream. The group of ABA owners collectively decided that they just had to land Alcindor. They would work together as an entire league to be able to get Alcindor to sign with one of their teams, because they would all stand to gain just by having him in the league. Now, at the point that this story takes place, the NBA draft had already occurred and the Milwaukee Bucks had the first pick, and they used that first pick to select Lew Alcindor from UCLA. But because the ABA existed at all, it gave the Bucks some competition. The Bucks knew that selecting a player in the draft did not automatically mean that the player would sign a contract. Theoretically, that player could just go ahead and sign with an ABA team instead. And if that happens, the NBA team simply loses the player altogether and they just wasted a draft pick. The ABA decided that they were not going to put Alcindor through their own draft process. As a league, they decided that the New York Nets were going to get the rights to Alcindor. And they did this for two reasons. First, New York had a terrible team and they could definitely use an upgrade. Second, since Alcindor was originally from New York City, this would be like a homecoming for him. Alcindor would get to play professionally in front of his friends and family. The ABA really hoped that Alcindor would prefer to live in New York than Milwaukee. And it was no secret that Alcindor wanted to play in New York City, whether it was with the Nets or the Knicks. But in the NBA, it was not that simple. They had a proper draft process, and as I said before, Milwaukee was lucky enough to land the top pick, as opposed to the ABA, where the whole league just simply decided that New York would get the opportunity to sign Alcindor. So, Alcindor announced to both leagues that he would have one meeting with each league. Each league was to bring their best offer. After the meetings concluded with each league, Alcindor would then make his decision, and whatever decision he made, it was going to be final. There would be no second round of negotiations. So both the New York Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks knew that they only had one chance to land Alcindor. This was no time to mess around. They had to bring their best offer. So the ABA hatched a plan. The original plan was not to go with the New York Nets. The ABA approached billionaire Howard Hughes about offering Alcindor a $1 million signing bonus and then build a brand new ABA team in Los Angeles to surround Alcindor. But Hughes was non-committal and the plan died a slow death. So they moved on to Plan B, and Plan B is the one that we're talking about as the heart of this story. It called for the Nets to offer Alcindor a $1 million signing bonus and a mink coat for his mother. You see, the ABA brought together experts in psychology and a group of private detectives to put together an entire profile on Alcindor so that they could best approach Alcindor with what was most important to him. They spent thousands of dollars putting together this profile in order to give themselves the best chance at landing Alcindor, and that was not cheap at the time. And as you can tell, the ABA was putting everything into this. They were being meticulous and strategic. They had to land Alcindor for the overall health of the ABA. And one of the things that their detectives discovered was that Alcindor's mother had always dreamed of owning a mink coat. So they were going to make sure that a mink coat was part of the deal. I mean, what better way to get a player than to offer his mother an expensive gift that she always wanted. Of course, there was also the matter of the check for $1 million. That was going to be the clincher to land Alcindor. Back in 1969, the amount of $1 million was absolutely massive. The highest paid basketball player in the world at the time was Wilt Chamberlain, who was being paid $250,000 per year by the LA Lakers. So this signing bonus was going to be equal to 4 years' salary of the highest paid player. And remember, this was just a signing bonus. The Nets were still going to have to pay Alcindor an annual salary on top of that. This was set to be the largest basketball contract ever at the time. There was no way that the Milwaukee Bucks were going to be able to offer anything even approaching what the Nets were going to offer. The Nets had a surefire plan. There was no way that it could fail. But we all know that Alcindor never played in the ABA, so clearly something went incredibly wrong. And here is what went wrong. Handling the meeting for the ABA was the owner of the Nets, Arthur Brown, and the commissioner of the ABA, the great George Mikan. Brown had made his money by running his own trucking business. Mikan ran a successful travel agency in Minneapolis. They both considered themselves to be expert business negotiators and were confident that they could land Alcindor. However, Indiana Pacers executive Mike Storen felt that Mikan should take a lawyer to be part of the meeting in order to answer any legal questions that might arise during the meeting. Storen wanted to send the Pacers team lawyer Dick Tinkham. Storen did not have a lot of confidence in the combination of Brown and Mikan, even though Mikan was a licensed lawyer himself in addition to being a Hall of Fame basketball player, commissioner of the ABA, and a business owner. So the day of the meeting was selected and all parties traveled to New York City. The ABA was going to go in first and make their pitch, followed by the Milwaukee Bucks. Alcindor was going to meet with both groups on the same day and then make his decision before the end of that same day. So a bunch of the ABA executives and team owners were huddled together in a hotel room going over the plan with Brown and Mikan. And they instructed Brown and Mikan to open the meeting by placing the check for $1 million on the table in front of Alcindor before uttering their first word. The other executives felt that this would make an enormous impact on Alcindor and let Alcindor know that the ABA was serious. And I have to admit, this was a great idea for a strong opening to a business negotiation. So off they went, Brown and Mikan that is, up to the suite where Alcindor was going to receive them, and they were in there for over 3 hours. The ABA executives waited downstairs for what seemed like an eternity to find out what happened. Finally, Brown and Mikan emerged. The natural reaction of the other executives was to ask, well, how did it go? Mikan happily reported that they never even discussed the signing bonus. They spent most of the time negotiating the annual salary, and they offered Alcindor a contract for $1 million over 4 years. This would match the salary that Chamberlain was already making with the Lakers, the highest paid salary around. So the other ABA executives were confused and starting to get angry, and they asked, well, where was the check that they were supposed to give to Alcindor? Mikan smiled and said that the check was still in his coat pocket, but not to worry, because he decided to offer the bonus check to Alcindor during the second round of negotiations. And I'm going to let that sink in for a second. The other ABA executives exploded because they all knew that there would be no second round of negotiations. Alcindor was very clear that he would meet with each league once and then make a decision. But Mikan was under the strong impression that Alcindor would meet with the Bucks and then come back to the Nets to see if the Nets would increase their offer. And that was when he was going to offer that signing bonus check of $1 million. So during the meeting, did Alcindor change his mind and actually say that there would be a second round of negotiations? That's what the other ABA guys wanted to know. Well, Mikan admitted that Alcindor did not confirm a second meeting, but he was sure that there would be a second meeting. Then they asked if Mikan had actually read the file on Alcindor that they had spent a ton of time and money putting together, because if he had read it, then he would know that Alcindor was a highly intelligent young man who held to his beliefs strongly and rarely changed his mind. Neither Mikan nor Brown had actually read the file that the ABA had put together on Alcindor. So what good was spending all of that time and money putting together a file on Alcindor if the actual negotiators were not even going to read it? Mikan did his best to calm the other executives down by assuring them that he had been through many business negotiations in his career and there was always a second round. He was saying this to a group of men who were also successful business owners. Well, a couple of hours later, Alcindor emerged from his meeting with the Bucks and ran into a reporter in the lobby of the hotel as he was leaving. He told that reporter that he had chosen the Milwaukee Bucks, and his decision was final. The Bucks had offered $1.4 million over 5 years, which comes out to $280,000 per year for 5 years. This was $30,000 more per year than what Chamberlain was making. This meant that Alcindor, a rookie, was going to be the highest paid basketball player in the entire NBA. This was also more than what the Nets were offering per year, because the Nets' offer was simply to match what Chamberlain was already getting. And the ABA was left with nothing. Mikan still had that check in his pocket with no second meeting ever happening, just as Alcindor had said before the whole thing even started. Mikan had completely misread the situation. He decided to slow play the whole thing, and it backfired in his face. For his failure in ruining a perfect plan, the ABA owners fired George Mikan as commissioner. They clearly told him to offer the bonus check right away, and Mikan walked out of that room with the check still in his pocket and a smile on his face. Now, I don't want this story to detract from the fact that Mikan is still one of the greatest players of all time. He was also a very kind and an incredibly generous man. This one incident should not tarnish his legacy. I mean, at least it doesn't for me. But that is a story of how the ABA went after Lew Alcindor, bumbling the negotiations, only to see him sign with the Bucks of the NBA. Years later, when the LA Lakers signed Shaquille O'Neal as a free agent in the summer of 1996, they thought that it would be a great idea to get Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and George Mikan to join Shaq for a photo shoot, representing 3 distinct eras of Hall of Fame centers playing for the Lakers. They also invited Wilt Chamberlain to be part of it, but he declined. But it is still a great photo. Well, that is it for us. Join us next week when we share another story from the annals of basketball history. That's next time on Basketball History 101, part of the Sports History Network, the headquarters of Sports Yesteryear. Go to sportshistorynetwork.com to find out more about this and other sports history podcasts. If you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. And check out our page on Facebook. It's called Basketball History 101 Podcast. There you will find short historical posts, and I'll also announce there when new episodes come out. I want to thank my producer and editor, Jacob Loayza. Join us each week as we continue to mine the history of basketball for more great stories from the past. Take care, and see you soon.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
The Sports History Network, where legends live on and the past plays loud. Welcome to the place where history's proud. From gridiron glory to the hardwood stars, from the racetrack heat to Olympic bars. It's the voices, the stories, the moments you miss, told by fans and pros who live for this. Hook and Themic, the Sports History Network, where the past comes alive. Podcasts and blogs that keep the flame high. From Babe to Brady, Alley to the Dome. If it's history and sports, then this is the home. SportsHistoryNetwork.com, the headquarters of sports yesteryear.